Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, your one-stop high school prom for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. You may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are such good questions, and we do have good answers.
We do. A Spark File is the place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations and fascinations. And if you're anything like us and you're making stuff all the time, you know that sometimes the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry. We're here to refill it.
We're on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or a Tony-nominated performance of a delightfully awkward and honest young woman in a life-affirming Broadway musical.
Or a history-making kiss during the nationally televised Thanksgiving Day parade.
Or a space for your own true and authentic voice to be expressed and to inspire others.
On today's Makersode, we're going to talk with someone who truly sparks us.
And that special someone is Caitlin Kinnunen. Caitlin, welcome to
the Spark File.
That was terrifying and so lovely.
It's just like a Mack truck rolling right at you.
That's right.
A Mack truck
there you are. Your life
who is carrying a cargo of love.
Oh,
I really like that. I'd be hit by that truck anytime.
It's coming at you, baby.
Yes.
It's coming at you.
Caitlin, you may or may not know, we have a small price of admission for the Spark File. And that small price is, real quick, you need to tell us some creative risk that you've taken recently. Something you've done that was maybe progress, but not perfection.
Oh, I've got the answer for this. I'm so ready and so excited about it.
Fingertips.
So I have never identified as a soprano at all. And I was...
I love this already.
I was called in for Thoroughly Modern Millie at Encores for the role of Dorothy. And I was like, what the fuck?
Do they know me?
Do they know that I don't sing like this? But apparently I do now that I'm older and wiser. And I tried something new in my voice and it kind of worked.
Yes.
And I was excited to discover that new part of my vocal range. And now I'm actually going to work on it and see if I can become more of a soprano.
Wow. That is risky and scary
really good.
When you've known yourself to be a certain...
And to have to do that in front of other people was terrifying.
And you just did it.
But I did it.
You did it.
And I did it only taking 10 milligrams of a beta blocker instead of 20.
I love you. I love you. Yes. Yes,
The
beta
truth
blocker.
teller, and we'll be telling the truth today.
Hashtag
we will.
Truth Goose.
Hashtag Truth Goose.
Hey.
I think you're admitted to the Spark File, first
Well
of all.
done.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Suze, did I cut you off?
No, we're there. We're in.
Admitted. You're totally in.
I feel,
We're
Cams,
so
I feel
thrilled.
like we should have a series of sound effects. When somebody lays it down and it is admitted to the Spark File, it's the sound effect of like space doors opening. I don't know. That's like a basket.
We're gonna.
That was
we,
good,
we
though. I
know
like
some
that
people
one.
who could make some sound effects
I
for
bet
us.
Shockwave Sullivan we
Shockwave.
could just do a little sampling of sound effects, and then when somebody is admitted under the Spark File, it's like, and then
Experience with this mic.
it's not going to be us who makes it.
Yeah.
That
I
being
think that would
said,
be charming, though,
you've been
if it
admitted
was
to the Spark
you
File.
making all of the noises.
Just all
We'll
mouth
just keep
sounds.
going with sounds
let's
until
do
we
it right
get
now.
something.
Caitlin Kinnunen, you've been admitted to the
Spark
Spark File. I don't know what that's supposed to be.
It was great.
I don't know.
Hey, you're
Anyway,
in.
what were you
This is
gonna
what it
say?
sounds like inside the Spark File.
You're like, I don't like it. I don't like
Can
it
I get
here.
out now? Is that okay?
All right, I've got a multi-part, I think a
God.
3-part question.
Here we go.
Okay.
Number 1, how do you identify creatively?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
When somebody comes up to you at a party that you've never met before and they say, what do you do?
Oh, okay.
What do you say?
I say I'm an actor.
Beautiful.
But I want to go like a level deeper
Oh.
because you are a truth teller.
Peel the
so
onion,
what made you
Camia.
think? I don't know. Actor obviously doesn't quite cover it for you if you're like really digging deep.
It's true. I like to tell people that
Off.
yes, that always.
Fuck you.
I'm an actor.
No,
Okay.
I like to tell people that I pretend to be other people for a living and that I truly just like have the opportunity to tell other people's stories and create environments that they live in and connect to other individual humans throughout that and
There you
within
go.
that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I like that.
Okay.
tend to be other
What's
people.
1A or 2? Or how are you
so
labeling these?
I'm going to go 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
Okay.
here we go.
1, 2, 3. So number 2 is, what are you most well known for creatively that our listeners might know?
Playing Emma Nolan in the Prom musical on Broadway.
Okay. For our people that are not big theater goers,
Yes.
like because we do have our listeners are all sorts
Yeah.
of creatives, say more about that.
Well, The Prom was a Broadway musical that was nominated for some Tonys this past year. And it was about a 17-year-old gay girl who wanted to take her girlfriend to the prom. The school board said, no, you can't do that. And then 4 veteran Broadway performers decided to swoop in and try to save the day. Shenanigans ensued, and it had a happy ending.
And one of those Tony nominations was for none other than Caitlin Kinnunen. Okay, the third question is we're going to talk. We're going to talk more about the prom momentarily, but the third question in my series is, what are you not known for yet, but would love to be known for?
Apparently, it's being a soprano.
Check. Okay. You are well on your way
Burgeoning
to that
soprano.
third one.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I don't know. That's not the real answer, but I don't have one.
Is there anything, do you have your heart set? Is there anything, it may be a secret you haven't told yet. Is there anything that you're like, in the future, I'd like to see myself as the blank or as a blank?
No, I always say and like firmly believe and embody that I just want to keep telling good stories. That's like
That
my
is a
purpose in
great
life.
aspiration.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like I don't care what everyone's always like, oh, well, do you want to do theater? Do you want to do film? Like it's like, no, I want to do all of it.
Great
I just want
stories.
to tell great stories.
So you'll be led. The medium matters less than
Yeah.
the story itself.
Exactly.
I like
The medium
this.
doesn't matter
I
at
do
all.
too. When you took your role in the show, The Prom, did you have any earthly idea what a profound impact that it would have on your life professionally, personally?
No, none whatsoever.
Were you just like, this is cool. I'm in the center of this original musical. This is cool.
Yeah, well, because when I auditioned for it, I didn't even know that much. There was no information given. It was just like, you're coming in to audition for this character, which wasn't even the character I ended up playing. It was, I went in for Alyssa, who was the girlfriend. And at that point, it was a very stereotypical blonde cheerleader. And I was like, I am so wrong for this.
You were like, I'm not a soprano.
Exactly. I'm not a cheerleader. Look at me now, cheerleader. But yeah, so I didn't even know what it was. There was no storyline. There was no anything in the breakdown for that audition. And so you just kind of went in blindly. And then I ended up with this gift that just kept on giving.
Like professionally, it seems like it took you into another sphere. Can you tell us about that and how that felt?
I mean, it was completely overwhelming and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I was the lead of an original Broadway musical, and like that, it was just so
That's hot stuff.
Wonderful and so much and too much and like
And too
happiness
much, yeah.
and joy and sadness
Yeah.
and like everything all
Yeah.
at once. And it was 5 years of my life doing that.
Yeah.
That's
That's
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
And then personally,
Yes.
do you want to talk a little about the trajectory that
Sure.
show set you on? Yeah. And we have a Jonathan
Sure.
Groff story. We'll talk
great.
about it in a
Okay.
second too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But I mean, you talk first.
Great.
Yeah. You
well,
first.
It's interesting that you say it like that it's the trajectory that the show took me on. It's so difficult because prom was so all encompassing and so a part of my life for so long, and like some formative years. Like I started playing this role when I was 24.
Yeah.
And I am now
still
28.
Yeah.
And like, you don't know who you are when
Right.
you're 24. I still don't know who I am when I'm
Right.
28.
As
you know?
Gavin
You're up
Creel
there.
says, I didn't know how to wipe from front to back at that age.
Yeah.
I had
Gavin's always good.
He's
with
got the
very
gems.
visceral description.
but it's true. I think of myself at that age. I was
God.
like, you know what? I wasn't even yet a dumpster fire. It was still
Yeah.
dumpster fire on the DL. And then it was around 30 that the dumpster fire
can't
rose to the surface.
really
I feel
started flaming.
no,
Yeah.
for reals, like everything crickle crackled. But I feel like you have way more shit figured out. I'll only speak for myself.
At 24,
Than I
got,
did at 24.
Like married and divorced in 24. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 24 was. That's a
You seem
really
like you're doing
crazy
pretty
time.
good.
I will take that. I'm so glad that's what I'm
and
making
hold,
you
clutch
believe.
it at night.
Yes, I'll be like,
Great.
Very
"I'm
impressed with
I'm
you."
Okay. That's great. But yeah, so I was 24 and didn't know what I was doing. And like throughout the process, not because of the process, but also because of the process, I realized that I'm actually like kind of queer.
Yeah.
And like, well, the show was on Broadway. I did a wonderful interview with Nylon, which is actually super funny because we did it twice. I went and did the interview and didn't come out. And
Can I have a redo?
something went wrong with the sound. And so we had to retape the interview.
No
and
shit.
between them originally filming it and then the next time I had like started dating a woman. And so I was like, yeah, I'm dating a lady now.
Wait a second,
So-
wait a
Was it
second.
the same reporter?
Yeah,
Did they
like completely
redo it?
same thing.
They must have been mortified.
Oh,
that
they were
they didn't
fine.
run
It was
the
just
first
like
one.
No, I understand that, but if we
Yeah.
record this podcast, which
mean,
is
I'm
just
sure
a
they
baby
were, but
podcast,
I don't care.
If the tape didn't come out,
Yeah.
I would be like, boop boop.
Oh, you mean they'd be embarrassed
Yeah.
about having to have
But
you do
what
it again?
a
Whatever.
weird blessing.
Exactly. So now they got to do this like a cool interview with me where I was like, yeah, I'm dating a lady. And,
There's
and
some
everyone was
updates.
like,
Were
wait,
they
what?
like, you were
This is
holding
not what you
back
said
the
the
first
last
time.
Yeah, but what in the
Holding
first
back on
interview
us.
were you like, this is my boyfriend Chad? Like what?
Yes, I brought my boyfriend
that
to
voice.
the
I don't know why I
interview.
did that voice. I think that was Chad's voice. You don't talk like that. You're a soprano.
Chad's
For God's
like,
sake.
hey man, mention I'm your boyfriend. Say it.
Yeah, no, it's very weird. And they ended up getting like,
They got
I
the
think-
scoop.
Yeah, everybody got the scoop.
That's
And that's how I
incredible.
came
You
out.
got the scoop. It sounds like
I
you
did.
got the
I
scoop.
did. I got the
Amazing.
scoop. No.
But I was thinking about you because when we talked to Jonathan Groff, he talked about his experience of going all the way through Spring Awakening, which
Yep.
I know you also did,
Yep.
as a heterosexual man, or at least to the world, and like, hey, isn't she hot? And hey.
I think he just was like quiet on that point.
Yeah.
And the person he was with, he was like, "This is my." That's
yes, but he was doing
Jonathan
the role.
Groff.
Sorry,
this is my roommate.
Yeah. I want to be clear. Yeah. Oh, hey, that's his voice. No. I want to be clear that I am talking about the role that he was playing.
Role, yes.
This relates.
Yes.
So he was playing this very hetero role, obviously.
Very, yes.
Very, and was very quiet about his personal life throughout the whole process. So people make their own assumptions,
Yes, they do.
right? And it just made me think about you. And do you feel like, was there anything about playing that role that made you get more connected with yourself, or did you have an awareness of a part of yourself that you were suppressing?
It's so tricky. And I don't think I was suppressing anything. I was not hiding anything. I wasn't purposely trying to be like, I need to lie about my sexuality.
Right.
Totally it just wasn't something that I talked about, you know? And like, I talked to like my friends and stuff about like my experiences in the past and whatnot. But it like, I don't know, it felt personal. And it's like, I don't want to broadcast this to the nation until all of a sudden I was like, I want to broadcast this to the nation. But yeah, so I just never really thought about it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big deal to me. And it still isn't, you know, it's
which is awesome.
Yeah. I'm like, sexuality is very fluid. You can identify however you want and no one should give a fuck. It's your body, your choice.
Amen.
I think it's so interesting because, like you were saying, like you didn't talk about it, but you did a million interviews. Yeah. No one was asking about, hey, where's Chad, your boyfriend?
They did. People would ask. And at that point, I would just be like, I'm a straight ally. Because that's...
Ask what?
They would ask how I identified.
Because of your character.
Because of my character.
Played Emma.
Because I played
I don't know how
lesbian
I feel
teen.
about that.
It's very tricky.
Yeah.
I think to me, it's all about how people ask it. When they ask it pointedly and like, how do you identify? And it's like, no, you're just telling me to say I'm straight and you want to fight me on that. But if you like genuinely want to know and have a conversation about it, I'm fine with it.
Interesting.
Did you feel at all like you were suddenly thrust into this role of like being a voice of a generation, or,
yes and no. I felt a huge responsibility from the beginning of playing this character that like I couldn't fuck up.
Yeah.
You know, that she is such a real person in so many ways, because not only is she like loosely based on real events, there are also so many kids who identify as her and have been through the same experience as her, that it's like, I can't
honor that.
Yeah, I have to honor that. I have to be honest about it. I have to tell the truth through her. And I just didn't want to like have Caitlin fuck any of that up.
I just think that's incredible, because you didn't you took a role. You didn't ask for a whole bunch of responsibility or to be a voice of anything in particular. And yet,
here
we are talking about it in this interview.
I love it.
Anyway, I'm impressed with how you handled it.
But you were really drawn to the awkwardness and the honesty of Emma. Yeah.
I don't know that I would put it exactly like that. So a lot of people think that I like put on Emma's awkwardness. And I didn't. That's just me as a human being.
Yeah.
It would also be called acting if you did, but that's okay.
No, but somehow something about you, I feel like, and maybe it's just because now I'm old and I'm just like, when I was younger, I just wanted to do things where I was like, I have a hunchback and I have a hair lip and I speak with a Russian accent.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And now
what
I'm
Susan's
just
best
like,
known for.
I give you this.
Yeah, and I think that's...
I give you me,
what
and
I'm
going to mix it up with that character.
Yes, Emma was so well written and well developed that I didn't have to do much. I could just show up and be Caitlin and say these words honestly and truthfully, and it just kind of like morphed into Emma Nolan.
That's some casting alchemy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just like worked out perfectly. And like, yes, I'm an actor and I was doing my job and did all the homework and things and said my lines correctly and all of that. You know, I wasn't just like, oh, fuck this, gonna go take a smoke break. But like, there was such an alignment between Emma and Caitlin, and the fact that we had such wonderful writers who really accepted me for all of my awkward idiosyncrasies. And they were like, oh yeah, you can totally do that. Let's add that into the show. So it worked out.
Again, I'm sorry to be like ageist in this way and to keep pointing out just how impressive it is, but we'll do it again. I don't know that at 24 that a lot of people are so tuned into the concept of authenticity and honesty. And it seems to me that you live your life that way.
I like to think I do. I don't know. I think it's really my upbringing. I did not have a normal childhood in any way, shape, or form. And not in
more about that.
I'm going to tell you more about
what was weird.
Not in like a bad way, but I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 8 years old, and that makes you grow up really fucking fast. You know, like you all of a sudden are just like thrown this disease that you're told, oh, you could kind of die at any point. Also, if you live past 21, it's going to be lucky. Like those are the things I was told as like a 12-year-old.
What?
Yeah, I had some really shit doctors.
Have you since then you've had other doctors say,
my doctors now are champions. I love them so much. But the ones I had when I was 12 were really bad.
Wow.
But yeah, so like because of that, I was forced to be an adult when I was a child. And also because of that, it like set my life on a trajectory that it wouldn't have been otherwise. Like because I got diabetes, my parents started homeschooling me. Because I was homeschooled, I was able to do all of the theater I wanted to do. I had my first professional show when I was 11 because I had the time to do it.
Sure.
And because of that, I then auditioned for Spring Awakening, which got me out to New York when I was 16. So like all of these little things added up to create this like semi-knowledgeable, chill 28-year-old.
I can imagine just jumping back to receiving a diagnosis like that and having conversations like that. I can imagine you growing up quickly because all of a sudden you're having conversations where you're aware of your mortality.
Oh, yes.
And that is a whole different, like, eye-opening sort of
sense
exposure.
Of urgency.
But I also can imagine you growing up quickly because there is, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a doctor, I just play one on TV, that there is a whole host of discipline around like medication and food and things like that are introduced when you're diagnosed with something like type 1 diabetes or many forms of diabetes. And that puts strictures around your life that maybe another kid your age doesn't have. Are those the ways that you felt like you had to grow up fast? Are there other ways?
I mean, I feel like that's kind of like the gist of it.
Okay.
Yeah, that it's like when I was still going to school when I was first diagnosed, it was like I had like you had your normal like school day schedule that everyone followed. And then on top of that, I would have like a snack schedule that was enforced because if I did not eat 15 grams of carbohydrate at 11:15, I could go into a coma.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like,
so you're having to monitor and
Yeah.
like really participate in monitoring your blood sugar levels and all of this. Yeah.
And it's like, it's all of it is so very like strange and otherworldly. And I actually like should deal with this in therapy, but like, there's like, I don't remember having diabetes until I was like 16. Like it
And
just
you were
kind
diagnosed-
of when I was 8.
Oh,
and it just is
interesting.
like this blank spot of like, I feel like all of this information was just like thrown at me. And then like my childhood psyche like protected me from all of the shit that was being thrown
and you think
at me.
because there also was a network of adults around
Yes,
you.
exactly. Like my
making
parents
that
like
happen.
took it on all the way and were amazing. And so because of that, I got to be in this like little bubble of protection. But yeah, now things like come through and I'm like, oh yeah, a doctor did tell me that I would be lucky if I lived past 21. And that's
some
fucked up.
heavy shit to process when you're that young.
Yeah.
It's really heavy.
And I'm sure there are other people who have had similar experiences.
Totally.
But caramba, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking two things. One, your parents are pretty extraordinary.
They're angels and I love them so much.
Oh my God. Honestly, because
great.
it seems like I can't speak for them, but like that sense of urgency and the assurance that you would live your life pursuing the things that brought you joy from age 8 on. Like that's incredible.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Like what if we all paved that way from an early age? It would be fascinating.
was saying earlier today, this podcast is really for people who like to listen to two middle-aged women cry and talk about their mortality.
I'm so into that.
Are you here for it?
I am here for
Pretty
it.
sexy.
I love it.
But I really do believe that whatever age you are, my sweet creatives, that having a sense of your own mortality, that can be heavy to process, but I also think it can make you a greater artist.
Yes.
For several reasons.
Like get
just
off our butts for one.
Yeah,
like we
just
don't
for
have
one
all the
reason.
time in the world.
Like this is not infinite. Life is precious and fleeting. And if there's something you want to make,
do it.
Gonna
Do
make it.
it.
And also because it is part of the human experience. And don't be afraid of the dark a little bit.
Yeah. And to add on top of that, like no one is telling you no. There's no like
genius.
big force that's like, you can't do that. Yeah, we're all going to die and we can all do whatever the fuck we want. As long as we're not hurting other people and there's consent involved in everything you do.
Oh my God.
Do whatever you want. Do what makes you happy. Find the things that spark joy, you know?
Oh
like,
my God. I'm going to talk about this for days, if not weeks, if not months to
don't
come.
limit yourself.
No one's telling you no.
No one's telling you no.
The no in your head is an imaginary voice.
I do think sometimes I'm thinking this through in real time. And I know people who have had parents who have who have been naysayers, who have put that voice into the child's head, and then the child becomes the adult and continues to replay that voice. And, sometimes, if it's unexamined, you can really hide out in there.
Well, people believe it. They believe that voice. They truly hear it
because
and
it sounds credible and it sounds authoritative and it sounds real. It doesn't sound like fiction. It sounds real.
How did you come to this realization that no one's telling you no? Were you young when you knew that? Did you realize it later?
I think it's been a gradual thing. I think I've had enough instances in my life where that like authoritative imaginary figure is saying no, that at a certain point I just went like, but no one actually is telling me no.
It's not an actual person.
That's not an actual
entity.
person. Yeah. So let's push past that and see what happens.
I'm reflecting on this conversation. We just were speaking to our friend Chris Anderson, who plays a character named Dixie Longate. And I remember having dinner with Chris like 5 years ago. And we were talking about the creative projects that we aspired to make and this and that. And I was talking about I have a long, fine history with wrestling with fear and wrestling with all sorts of those little vampires and demons. And I just remember him looking across the table at me and saying, there's no time for fear.
Yes.
And I was like, but I've made so much time for fear,
and
Chris.
so much space. Look at all this room for fear.
And he was, it was so weird to see somebody who's just across the table from me who was just like, there's no time. It was so simple. It was so direct. Yes. And I was like, could you put that in a shot glass? I want to drink it right now.
Yes.
But I'm kind of there now where
That's amazing.
I'm like, tick-tock, said the clock. There's no time.
There's no time.
Yeah. And yet I still make time for it.
Oh, totally.
I just want everybody to know.
And like, I'm saying all of this, and meanwhile, I'm like the most anxious person.
I'm
being
not
like,
over here. I'm not walking on water.
Yeah,
like,
no,
it's not real.
But I love it comes into focus sometimes, and I'm like, there's no fucking time for fear.
Listen, the struggle is real, and it's great for all of us to acknowledge that. Like, there is not a person that we have met or have talked to for this podcast that is like, yeah, I don't feel that. I don't feel fear anymore. I don't struggle with it. They've just learned to manage it and move on.
Yeah, and expand their comfort zone.
That's right.
Alex handled, like expanding that. Yeah. I've expanded where I can live in comfort. Yes.
Caitlin, just one more thing about the type 1 diabetes, because
the beaties, we're going to call it.
The beats. I saw like on your Instagram some glorious photos that just really felt like, again, you did not choose to be the voice of people with diabetes, but it sure seems like nonetheless you are messaging you can get out, despite the challenges of this disease, you can get out there.
Yes.
You can be sexy. You can be ambitious. You can be successful.
Yeah. I feel like with that, there are a lot of things that I stand on soapboxes and scream about.
I like it.
And
Use that megaphone.
use this microphone that's right in front of me now.
Do it.
Those things are things like diabetes and mental illness and any like physical or emotional disturbance in your body, health in general. Another thing is body positivity, that we all have bodies. They are all valid. There is no right or wrong way to be a person.
Amen.
And then just like women's rights and all of that stuff, you know, just like decent human qualities. I'm all here for. But specifically the like, I am not a twig. The fact that in this industry I am considered like curvy and plus size is bullshit. I've been told I am too big to play certain roles, and I've been told I'm too small to play other roles, and it pisses me off. Because like I'm a size 10. That is not even as big as the average American woman.
That's right.
So you can fuck off.
And so you can see who's not being represented on the stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
Please.
When you have those, like, you can all go fuck yourself feelings, is there any part of you that is moved to be an originating artist as opposed to an interpretive artist?
100%.
Tell me how that might live.
That it comes down to like the little things where it's like being able to play a lead in a Broadway show and have them not mention my body size once and just be able to like be a person in this leading Broadway role. Like no one ever said on any like part of the team in the cast, like no one was like, oh, well, if you would like lose a little bit of weight, it would be better for us, because it doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter.
And so that was just like wonderful to be given that gift of like, no, just be yourself. And so I just want to keep doing that.
You're talking about originating that role. What I'm interested in also is you making your own work where you can center the conversation wherever you want.
That scares me so much.
Ooh, talk about that.
Doing
Talk about
my
that.
own thing.
Oh, why?
I am a follower.
Listen to me. Listen to your Nana Susan. Listen to Nanny Susan.
Okay,
no
I'm
one's
listening.
telling you no.
Yes.
You can do this life is your life, and you
true.
get to do whatever the fuck you want with it. Thank you. But no one is telling you no. And Nanny Cams and Nanny Sue's, just gently mark this date on your calendar. Just really gently want to plant a seed with you. That is, you are a remarkable interpretive artist.
Thank you.
And there is nothing but possibility around you being an originating, generating artist, making whatever the fuck you want to make.
And I think because yes to all of that. I think my like brain gets ahead of itself and it's like, oh, I've got all of these like little ideas, but then how do I make them a reality? Where do I find the resources to make them a reality? Because that's definitely a thing. I think creativity is shouted from the rooftops, and a lot of the time people are like, oh yeah, you can do your own thing. But in actuality, a lot of people don't have the resources to do their own thing, whether that be monetary or otherwise. And so that's overwhelming. And then I'm like, well, which idea do I start with? How do I get these people involved?
All of that makes so much sense to us.
And that's where my body says like, no. But there's no one telling you no.
There's no one telling you no. And you spoke earlier about just wanting to tell great stories. If you're not finding that a great story exists, you can fill that gap. You can tell.
But then
the
I'm
stories.
also afraid that like I'll tell my own story and people will be like, not worth it.
No,
you know,
it's not going to happen. I do know, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but what you're saying makes total sense. And again, you can tell us to go fuck ourselves. We can take it. We can take it.
No, because what you're saying is completely true and valid and important. And like, yes.
The thing I love about the possibility of it is you are such you're such a life force. And I think you have a lot of really interesting things to say. And I just relish the idea of you centering that conversation exactly as you would like to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now we can let that go. No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I'm going to leave and be like, oh,
no
they put
pressure.
so much
Those
pressure
two
on me
can
to do
fuck
things.
right off.
No.
In answer to that, I mean, you listed a lot of questions, and there's a lot there, but for myself personally, I began to allow myself to tell more stories on the page once I freed myself from the idea of any one story has got to be the story, the whole, and hit check all the buttons and be like, it's got to show that I'm funny,
it's
and it
be
has
long
to
day's journey into night.
It has to bring on the tears. It has to be important. It has to. No, it just needs to be a story, and then tell another story, and then tell another story.
Yeah.
We're going to be watching for what comes from you.
I have a feeling. I just have a feeling. I do. Sometimes I get these, I'm not a psychic, but I'm not headless. And I do have this feeling about you where I just have an intuition about a possibility of a chapter of your making and your creativity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take that intuition.
Okay.
I'll run with it. Okay.
Just put it in your pipe. Put it in the back of your pipe and smoke it on some point. Great.
Yeah. Okay.
I will.
But no pressure.
No pressure.
So listen, you may know one of the things we like to really explore in our conversations, this concept of failure or perceived failure.
Yeah.
We like to get into have you ever felt a sense of failure, and how did you process it? What do you do?
Every day of my life.
What? Really?
No, I mean, for instance, one of the things that actually really came to a head yesterday, and I talked hot off the presses, and I talked to my best friend about it, and then I went and talked to my therapist about it, is this idea that I, in the last year, have been given many amazing opportunities and gifts, and I am now unemployed and Tony-less and not booking anything, and therefore I feel like a failure. I know I'm not. I know that what I am doing is important, and I have done great work, and I'm building those stepping stones and continuing on my journey, but there's also a part of me that's oh, I'm going to be that girl who was nominated for a Tony in 2019 and then does nothing else. And people are going to be like, where the fuck did she go?
Yeah.
What was she doing?
That's the voice in the back of my head that's oh, you're a failure.
Yeah.
But it's no, I'm not. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm living my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah. I think I can relate to that. I think you can probably relate to that.
I don't know if I've said this on mic on this. I feel like I've burdened you with it extensively, Cams.
I love it.
But
I'll take it.
woke up the other day. My eyes popped open, and the phrase that flashed through my head and my thoughts was, "You're a failure." In impact bold font.
Yeah.
You're a failure. And I was just it was an ass rocker. It's an ass rocker. When that little son of a bitch rises up, it's really something to contend with. And there's all sorts of evidence that I could point to where I'm like, here's why you are a failure, Susan.
Oh, yes.
Comparison with, other friends who are just rocking like docking, etc. I could look at my bank account. I could there's so many pieces of evidence that I'm loving you so much right now for saying this and emboldening me to speak on it. But isn't that an interesting little gremlin to wrestle with?
Yes, it is a little gremlin.
To surrender to, or to, I feel like the way that I was like, when I fully woke up that morning, it sort of evaporated off a little bit.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was the tail end of a dream I was having, but I was like, there was a reason I was having that dream. And where I was like, how am I going to combat this or surrender to it? Or how am I going to address this? And I was like, I think I am going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So I'm going to exercise. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do all those little, self-care, the
things that are in your control.
Those things that are in my control, those things that become the structural pillars of a day.
Yep.
And I'm going to get back to work.
Good.
I'm going to, edit the podcast. I'm going to write a spark for the next podcast. I'm going to check in with Cam. I'm going to get back to work. And that really helped to, and then I had to, at some point, like set some time aside to examine it. Like, why did my psyche cough that one up? What is there that I need to sort of, but it's, the strugs is real. That's what the kids say. The strugs is real.
I don't think that's taking off.
They do, because the struggle is real takes too long.
This is so
The strugs is real, guys.
So I go to this like wellness center where I sit in an infrared sauna for 30 minutes and live my best life.
What?
It's amazing.
Nice.
I highly recommend it. But
Give the address so people can stalk you there. Just kidding. Just kidding.
shall not. They have one shower for the whole place, and in
Communal?
No, just like a single stall in one bathroom.
Got it. Okay.
And so like you got to take your turn.
Yeah.
It's very small, so it doesn't, like, I've never been like, oh, I got to rush out of the shower. But there's a sign in their bathroom that says, I don't know what it says exactly, but I think it
Susan
says
Blackwell, you're not a failure.
Yes, it says that.
Very niche.
Very niche.
They're waiting for you to show up.
I think it says the struggle is real, but someone it's like, this is a shared space. Please,
strugs
like
is raw.
do
kids
it.
know.
It says the struggle is real, and someone crossed out real and wrote shared.
Oh.
And it's like, yeah, the struggle is shared. The struggle of human life is shared.
Thank you.
But what the kids say, because they don't have time, is the strugs is share.
Yeah, that's what they would say.
There's
Because
no
they don't like
share.
consonants.
Stop
Sorry.
trying to make fetch happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. The struggle is
The
shared.
struggle is shared.
That's
though.
what, when you
Everyone
shared that
knows.
story you just shared, that's what you did for me.
Yeah,
That-
exactly.
to
And now
make
we
it
have like an
okay.
awesome conversation about the fact that we both felt like
'Cause
failures.
I get deeply,
Yes.
I mean, as you can see, I'm fine now and I'm just yakking, but I was filled with shame.
Of course you were.
I was so ashamed. I was ashamed that I felt that. And I had the double arrow, the old double arrow. I was ashamed. And I was ashamed. Like, it was a mess.
Yeah.
But you sharing that now.
Yeah.
You sharing that now.
That's
the
another
strugs is shared.
soapbox I like to stand on with
Yes.
my mental health is
Yes.
that the more we talk about it, the more it will be normal, and then it will
Yes.
go away.
And that's why
Let
people
us-
call you
The Truth Goose. Yes.
Yeah.
TM.
The Truth Goose.
We got to
Goose
trademark
TM.
that
We
shit.
do.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I was like,
I need
wonder
merch.
if
I
anyone
need
else
shirts.
has said that before.
Hashtag
Truth
Truth
Goose.
Goose.
I love it.
Yeah.
For those
now,
listening,
now there's three of us.
The story goes that I'll say something and someone will be like, oh, you're such a silly goose. And I'm like, no, I'm a truth goose because I'm telling the truth. Now it makes sense.
See?
Now it's there.
Truth
I
Goose.
see an animated series in your future.
Okay,
my
well,
God,
here's
of the
this is
Truth
a
Goose.
like a
Truth Goose.
thing that I've had. So I keep notes in my phone like everyone
Yeah.
else with an iPhone. If you go back, there are some really weird ones. But
Spark fun.
one of the ones that I have just re-upped because the Truth Goose has come back into my life. There are 2 children's books I want to write. I don't know how I'm going to start them or when I'm going to start them, but no one can steal this. No one who
Okay.
listens. If you steal this, I will sue you.
This one is not for the taking and the making because Caitlin is going to make it.
Also, they sound terrible right now because I haven't actually thought them
It's all right,
through.
work it
They've
out.
just been notes in my phone for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
One of them is Gus, the truffle pig dog. And it's a children's book about a French bulldog who is raised with truffle pigs and has to find himself because he can't find truffles
Because he's not a truffle pig.
because he's not a truffle pig.
So he needs to look for his.
And now I also
His
want to
gifts.
write one
I like
about a
it.
truth goose.
Yes.
That's a goose that just tells the truth all the time. And he
Yes.
has to learn what that means to himself.
This-
There are
this one,
degrees
this
of
one was a
truth.
new one. And so I haven't really thought out the plot points
you
yet.
really do. It's a little
Truth
animated
Goose.
series.
But I
for
will
sure.
tell you that this is exactly what we're talking about. No, I'm serious. Like,
Yes.
this is how things get made.
Exactly.
You have a spark comes to you.
So if
and you
anyone
take it
listening
seriously.
wants to be an illustrator, let me know.
Yeah.
Also, if anyone is
Oh
a
my God.
writer and would like to guide me through writing a children's book, come at me, bro.
We're talking to someone tomorrow who writes
Written
children's
2
books.
New York Times best-selling children's
Well,
books, and their third is
You
coming
should
out soon.
pitch Truth Goose and Gus
Connect
the
you.
truffle pig dog.
You
And
should.
then we'll take the
You
we'll
should.
take the finder, connection fee. Yeah.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah. Great.
This is great. See, this is how shit gets made.
Like we're not even joking.
Oh, I'm not either. I'm
Okay,
dead
great.
serious about it.
Good. So we have shared shame. Yeah.
I love that.
I think, and I want to just see a show of hands of everyone listening, like who's with us, everyone who has felt like I just compared myself to any number of people or concepts or ideas or bank accounts.
And you might be
came up
surprised to
short.
hear Caitlin or hear me.
Yes.
Cam's is doing fine right now, but like that
Thank you.
that is true. Like that we have been like, fuck, we're failures in the recent past.
Honestly, like I know you were kidding, but I include myself in that as well. Like I look at, like I had a creative trajectory going. My mom passed away. I spent a good 3 years of what I felt like was off course.
Yeah.
And then trying to steer the ship back towards my creativity. So I count myself among the like people like, what the hell? What have I done? And what did I do with the potential of all of that momentum that I had?
I want to say something that my meditation teacher, Emily Fletcher, says all the time. Hi, Emily. That's not what she says, because that would be weird if she said hi to herself.
Yeah.
She says, you're right on time.
Yes.
You're right on time, Camian.
Thank you.
You're right on time, Caitlin. Susan's
You're
right on
right
time.
on time,
Even though
Suze.
sometimes I'm like, no, I should have figured this out when I was Caitlin's age.
Nope.
See how much Caitlin has figured out? I should compare and despair.
That's right.
But really, like, you're right on time.
Yeah.
You're right on time. If you're listening, you're right,
You're
on,
right
time.
on time.
Yeah.
So that was good. That was good.
Hug it out, everybody.
Suze has a question that she really, really likes to ask, so I don't want to jump to it.
I can't wait.
But I'll tee it up. From the outside, it might look to someone, hypothetically, they might be just glancing in at your life, doing a bit of research, perhaps. Again, hypothetically. And they might think, wow, moved to New York, started doing theater as a child, moved to New York, stepped right into your light on the Broadway stage. That must have been easy, and it's been smooth sailing.
Here's what I want to know. How did it feel on the inside? Now, that's a little question for such, like, we're talking about your life.
No, that's a big question.
But how did it feel on the inside?
It felt horrible.
You don't say.
You don't say.
How so?
Do tell.
So many ways. So I moved to New York when I was 16 years old, and I was not ready, like in any way, shape, or form.
That makes sense to me.
Right? Shocking.
Yeah,
A 16-year-old wasn't ready for life. What? And of course, I'm 16. I think I know everything.
Who moved? Who all moved at 16?
Yeah. So we'll back up about 6 months. I was in Seattle. I was living with my parents and my sister. That's my family. Again, they're the best. I was doing professional theater in Seattle. I went to an open call for Spring Awakening. It was originally an open call for the tour, and I ended up with 2 callbacks in New York that my mom flew out with me. The second time my sister went with us, it was like a family vacay, also an audition. My mom always jokes that it's like last minute hotel rooms, last minute flight is this much, booking a Broadway show priceless, like MasterCard commercial. So,
nice one,
Billy
Mom.
Crudup
Right?
on the phone.
So I went and did these auditions, and then they called and they were like, hey, we want you to do the show, but Remy's not leaving yet. She can stay as long as she wants. We'll keep you posted.
Wow.
Essentially. So we were like,
Oh,
thanks. Okay, great, cool. 6 months later, they were like, hey, Remy's leaving. Be here in 2 weeks.
Wow.
We were like, okay, great.
whoa.
So my parents, being the amazing people that they are, were like, if we say no to this opportunity, it will never present itself again.
Yeah.
And we cannot be the people who said no to our daughter.
Being on Broadway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
mom and I packed up. We moved to New York. I started rehearsals. And so at the beginning, it was me and my mom. About 3 months in, my sister moved out to New York with us. My parents had a long distance relationship for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And are just the best people.
Yeah.
But within all of that, I was starting what I thought was my dream job, being on Broadway, making my Broadway debut.
Yes.
Note the word thought. I moved across the country. I had no friends. I had no social life. I was in a show where at that point in time, people were not the kindest. And I took that very hard and internalized it. And of course was like, no, I'm a happy person. I have my dream job. I'm making my Broadway debut.
I can't not be happy.
Exactly. I can't not be happy when in actuality I was miserable and lonely and scared and all of those things. And then realized like, oh yeah, I'm clinically depressed behind like the smile of like, no, my life is perfect. What's wrong with me?
I got everything I wanted.
And I started having anxiety attacks on stage and would have to like call out during the show, call out like 5 minutes to places. And I had never had them before. So I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like I feel like I'm dying. And what I'm being met with backstage is like, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, clearly I am not fine.
Yeah.
Something is happening. So we had to like figure that out. I figured out, oh yeah, I have depression and an anxiety disorder. I got on meds for it. I tried to go to therapy at that point, but it didn't really stick.
Not time. Not ready yet.
Not time. It was not time, Caitlin. Now it is time. And so yeah, it was just like hard and kind of miserable, all while presenting itself as perfect.
How long was that chapter for you where you were like, it looks like this on the outside, it feels so different on the inside?
Yeah.
I'd say I did Spring Awakening for the last 6 months of the run. And so I started when I was 16. I turned 17 before we closed. And I'd say that like there was a solid 4 years of like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. And I know that this is what I want to be doing, but it doesn't feel right yet. And I can't figure out how to make it work, but I'm trying. And I kept showing up. I kept doing the right things. And eventually it did work. And like now, like New York is my favorite place in the world. I've been here for almost 12 years. I would not live anywhere else. I love what I do. I'm still depressed and anxious, but like I know how to deal with it now, you know?
Can I ask you, I know in my own journey with this, where things, remember the flaming dumpster fire I was referring to earlier?
Oh, yeah.
When mine rose to the surface, it also, it's years of work.
Yeah.
Years of work. Was there some sort of a piece that once you sort of like explored it, figured it out, it was like sort of at the center of that? Or was it something that was more diffuse than that?
I think the latter. I think it is a continuation of things. I don't think there's been like one definitive thing that has helped me. I think it's accumulating a lot of things. I think it's giving myself time, giving myself space, surrounding myself with people I love and adore, being
understanding yourself more,
like connecting with like what really makes me tick and figuring that out, because I still don't know the true answer to that. I'm just like one day at a time, and I think for me it truly is just time. Give yourself time. Don't rush trying to fix everything.
I know for myself, it was when I really resolved, we're going deep today on the Spark File, when I had some like old ass trauma.
Yeah.
And when I really like the painful work, time consuming work of like processing through that trauma, it was only then, I always call it, actually Hunter Bell is like, you took the deep dive, you cleaned out the cesspit.
Yeah.
You cleaned it out, like scooped it out, cleaned it out, scrubbed it out, rinsed it out, cleaned it again. Like once I had really taken the time to clean it out and it was like fresh and clean, then I was operating on a very healthy foundation. But it really took time. And I have no place asking you this, but I just wondered if there was something that you had to work on or something that you had to learn about yourself that then made it possible for you, or if it was just really understanding the way that you were built neurologically and understanding the mental health issues that you were contending with.
I think it's the understanding, because there was like, yes, there's emotional trauma in my past, but I truly do not believe that like that is the catalyst for what happened at that point. I don't think me getting diabetes and having to deal with that at a young age affected me as a professional.
If you told me that it was simply the overwhelm of being put into a situation like shot out of a cannon.
That's right.
Honestly, yes.
That'd be good.
That's enough.
I'm sure that is.
That's enough.
But I think for me, it like figuring out that it is okay, because for so long it was like not being okay is not okay when really not being okay is okay.
Yes.
That's right.
And so it's just about that like self-acceptance of like getting rid of the image of me being this like perfect, bright-eyed, happy person and saying, I don't need to be that. It is okay that I am not happy all the time. And just like acknowledging that fact, let me move forward in everything.
I just want to underscore for people who are listening, Cam's has had whole rocky chapters. Caitlin clearly has, Nana Susan has. And
Nana Susan.
It really, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, and if you continue to, I know sometimes it's so hard and you don't even want to lift your head from the pillow, but if you really do keep doing that gentle work and keep putting one foot in front of the other, it will shift.
Yeah. An emphasis on gentle work.
Yeah.
It does not need to be a huge shift overnight. It can be little itty bitty pebble sized, even sand sized pieces that you rebuild yourself from. And there is no time limit on that. Again, like,
but sometimes just giving yourself permission to have a rocky chapter and say, I'm in the midst of a rocky chapter.
So, it can be so achy.
I'm in the midst of a struggle. Admitting that can sometimes trigger a very swift healing because you've been spending so much energy trying to pretend like you're not having a rocky
the happy
time.
face on.
Yeah.
That's exhausting. And I wrote a whole big piece about this very, very thing of like my entire life looked one way. And if I even suggested that I wasn't feeling the way it looked, people would be like, "What are you crazy?
Yeah.
You're like you're you. Look who you are. You're amazing. You can't. You're." And I was just like, "Oh, okay. I'm just hitting a wall." And that confession of all this is a big fucking facade.
Yes.
Crickle, crackle.
Let it fall down. Let's like knock that wall down.
Yeah.
I'm so amazed and impressed and excited for you because what's beyond that wall going to be pretty great.
Yeah.
The Truth Goose series.
Truth Goose.
Coming to Nickelodeon.
Caitlin, can you tell us what's it all for? You've put a lot of thought, years of therapy.
Actually, this is a newer thought that I found on Instagram. I'm obsessed with Instagram. I love it so much. I think it can be used as a tool to help people and not just project pointlessness.
Look at you with your good attitude.
But but a friend of mine, I forget who, I think it was maybe Morgan Carr, who I did Spring Awakening with. I think it was
Hi, Morgan.
I don't know. Posted a thing that said, what if the point of it all is to help other people?
Yeah.
And I really resonated with that.
I feel that.
You're living that. You are living that.
I'm trying.
In so many ways.
That's all we can do. Everyone can just try.
But living authentically and gives other people permission to live authentically. So like, can we all just admit, I'm not fancy. You're not fancy.
No one's fancy.
I'm not happy all the time. You're not happy all the time. Like
that's okay.
Let ourselves be.
Yeah.
To be of service
and talk about
to
it.
others.
Yeah, talk about it.
I love that.
Shine a light on it.
Is there a thing that you know that you would love to do that you need to do before you're done?
I think it just is to continue. Just continue to do my best. And whether that means becoming a children's book writer or like telling more awesome stories via the stage screen, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
I'd love that.
Can you tell us who or what is sparking you these days?
Honestly, like this sounds so cheesy, but like the outdoors. But I don't mean that in like woods. I mean that as in like the city and like specifically finding like sunshine in the city has been like
natural
really
light.
Yes. Finding natural light and like getting outside and like seeking that out. Like today.
Do you consciously do this?
Yes. Yeah.
Say more.
Like today I had this scheduled and that was it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go get my nails done at 12, which brings me so much joy. Get your nails done. I love it so much. But I did that, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm done now. I've got like 3 hours to kill before I have to do this interview." Oh my god, it was amazing! It was my best day. But like, I walked from the nail place like all the way down to like Houston, and then just like meandered and like found pretty things to look at, and like found like this, like I posted it on Instagram. There was like this like giant heart made out of like garlands on the side of a building that I was like, that's beautiful, and just opening your eyes to what's around you.
Yes.
You know
You know
so
what,
I just
Caitlin?
wandered and loved
We built
it.
a whole podcast around what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Exactly
you did.
did. We're a big fan of that.
And I'm on it.
Yes.
What?
You're on it. Oh my God.
We couldn't be happier that you are.
Me either. This was awesome.
You're a
I
human
like
spark.
you both.
You are a human spark.
You really are.
Caitlin Kinnunen, thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
I'm so sad to say this, but I guess that's it.
I know.
We hope that this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, you listen to me. Who's that person? If there's a spark that you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We'll even take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
And be
That's
sure.
genius.
Yes.
We're 100% about being in the arena and taking feedback from people who are in the
Yes.
arena. So if you are out there and you're doing it, please tell us. Please give us feedback. You know how hard it is. But if you're not, no thanks.
There you go. Hey,
You
and be
can
sure to
fuck off.
subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you liked this podcast, you know what would really help? If you share it with people that you love. If you didn't like it, Caitlin, I don't know, what do you say to your critics?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, but not sorry.
sorry, not
Sorry, not
sorry.
sorry.
If something tickles your fancy, gets your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It is your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to begin it. You got to toast and cinnamon it. You got to be your true, authentic self, and Caitlin Kinnunen it.
You gotta take it and make it. Bye.
Oh no.
You saw it coming. It was so cute.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.